anyway, so I'm saying be careful. It leads me into my one. Okay, I'm going to teach you about sin today, okay? There's 3 big ones, okay? Money, sex, and power. Now, money, you guys are Gordon College students. You don't have to worry about that. That's not going to be a problem. Sorry. Actually, to be honest with you, the biggest thing that scares me, and actually should scare you, is 15. 15T. Okay, 15T. And you guys should be scared out of your minds. 15 trillion. You guys. Okay? Is that... Okay. You don't even know what that means. I don't even know what that means. All I know is, okay, money, okay? Money, okay, money. Don't worry about it. You won't have to worry about the money thing. Sex is dirty. If you're a Christian, you do sex and stuff, you get caught, you're busy, it doesn't work real well. So sex is dirty, okay, so, all right, sex. The one you need to worry about, and actually if you're going to do sin, don't worry about money, you'll never have it. The sex thing, you get caught, it's dirty and stuff. If you're going to do sin, do power. Power is the clean one, okay? No, seriously, they don't catch you. And actually, you do power right, everybody thinks you're the big honking leader, man, and you're the man, okay? And so, if you're going to do it, do power, it's the clean one, and it's the... Now, question, was I being sarcastic? Yeah, I should have walked over there, but I'm afraid he won't move the camera, so... Well, what I'm saying is, money, sex, and power. Which one is the most tricky? Which one is the most insidious? Power. And that's what I'm trying to say. Power is the most insidious, okay? Because it comes on a person. Power does what? Power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts, absolutely. Be careful about power. It's really subtle, and it gets into a person, and it sucks the marrow out of their being before they even know it. And so what I'm saying is be careful. It's the clean one. It looks good and things, but it's really things. So you got to be careful with this stuff. Now, okay, get back to Deborah. Now, what's going on with Deborah? Competence and not, it seems to me, competence and gifts, not gender, are the issue. Competence and gender are the issue. Huldah is going to be a prophetess in the Old Testament. She is a prophetess. Now you say, God only used prophetesses when there was no good men, okay? No, Huldah is a prophetess when a guy named, I think his name was Jeremiah, is running around. Is he a fairly good man? Like Jeremiah writes the biggest book in the Old Testament. Actually, it's bigger than Psalms, actually. Not as many chapters, but it's longer. So Huldah is prophet when Jeremiah is around. She is a prophetess. So there were good men around, but God still used her. If you go into the New Testament, somebody said, well, that's all these Old Testament prophetesses and stuff. The Old Testament's all messed up. What happens when you go into the New Testament? You have Philip's prophesying daughter. He's got like 5 or 7, I forget which, 5 or 7 of these prophesying daughters. They're prophesying daughters. They're Philip's prophesying daughters. That's in the book of Acts. That's after Pentecost, after the Spirit's come. That's during the church age. And this is basically Philip's prophesying daughters. So what you've got is women in leadership in both testaments, both things. So then what do you do with the Paul statements and things? Well, then I think whenever you see conflict in Scripture between statements like that, you got to say culture is probably involved in it. Is Paul addressing a particular problem at Corinth that makes him say that? And are there particular problems? And so, actually, I pushed that off to your New Testament class. Your New Testament class, when you go over Corinthians and Timothy, will point out some of the solutions. But I think it's largely solved because of cultural issues that were problems back in those days. Now, okay. Where does Deborah do her thing? With Barak. Okay, Barak is the general, and they go out, and they're going to fight with iron chariots. Jabin, king of Hatzor, comes down with his iron chariots. Question, is this going to be a great place for chariots? It's flat. Do chariots work here? No. Do chariots work here in the mountains? No. They work here in the plains. Do you see that this plane looks like an arrowhead here? This plane kind of looks like an arrowhead coming down. This plane right here is called the Megiddo Plain, or you guys know it as Armageddon. This is Armageddon. This is the Armageddon Valley. It's the largest valley in all of Israel. It's a great place for a war. By the way, Megiddo is right here. That's why they call it Armageddon. Megiddo is the name of the place it's named after. It's right here. There's a tell, and this is where they did the battle with Deborah and Barak. By the way, the story of the battle, too. Who's going to take out the chief general? Is it going to be a man or is it going to be a woman? A woman's going to take out the general, and God says, Barak, because you were such a wimp, a woman's going to take out this man. So what happens? Sisera gets off his chariot. He comes trucking into this lady's house. Jael and says, hey, we've got an alliance with you guys. So he says, man, I'm really thirsty. Give me something to drink and stuff. And she says, oh, I don't have anything. I just have this nice warm milk and stuff. So he takes the warm milk, and what happens to him? He's dead tired, fighting wars really hard. He takes the warm milk. What does he do? All of a sudden he goes to sleep. What is she good at? Woman, what skills does she have? Can she fight Sisera head for head? I can do, this stuff. No, what's she do? Is she good with pegs and hammers? Because she what? Puts tents up and takes tents down. Does she know how to use a hammer and a peg? So she gets out her hammer and bang, bang, Maxwell's silver hammer down on his head. And boom, the peg goes through his head and she pegs the guy and takes him out when he's sleeping and stuff. Question, how does the woman fight in battle? Does she outfox him? Is she shrewd? She's shrewd, and she outfoxes him, and she gets him when he's weak like that, and she takes him out, and she wins the day. Jael is the great victor, and God wins the victory here with Deborah and Barak. So they're successful. They defeat Jabin, king of Hatzor. By the way, does anybody remember in the book of Joshua? You probably don't, but in the book of Joshua, it also mentioned that Joshua defeated Jabin, king of Hatzor. And some people say, well, the Bible's got errors in it. It's got Deborah defeating Jabin and Joshua. Is it most likely that Jabin was a family name where you had Jabin 1, Jabin 2, like you had in Egypt? Has anybody ever studied the Ptolemies in Egypt? Let me do a little Egyptian history. Egyptian history, Ptolemy. Ptolemy 1, Ptolemy 2, Ptolemy 3, Ptolemy 4. It goes down to like 24 Ptolemies in a row. So there all the history of Egypt, okay? And I'm being facetious. But Jabin was probably the same thing. It was probably a dynastic name. And then Jabin was continued on. So, okay, now Gideon and Midian. What happens here with Gideon and Midian, chapter 6 of Judges. Gideon is going to be, do you remember that article you guys read? The book of Judges kind of moves up with Gideon, and Gideon is kind of like the peak of the book of Judges. After Gideon, the book is going to go down. There's going to be a lot of more sinful stuff, bad stuff happens, so it kind of rises up to this guy Gideon. And he's threshing wheat in the wine press. Now, we need to know some information about what is the wheat in a wine press. First of all, how do you harvest wheat? Normally the wheat is in stalks. They're stalks about knee high or a little bit higher. And you take a sickle and you go in your hand, you grab a bunch of stalks and you chop it with a sickle. And you chop stalks. And then basically all the stalks are laid down. Then you take these stalks and you put them on a threshing floor. A threshing floor, that pillar to this pillar to where I am is probably twice as big as most of them are. They're about half the size. They're up on tops of mountains. They shave off the top of a mountain and make a flat area up there. They then take all the stalks and put the stalks on there with the wheat. The wheat is in a chaff. You know about the chaff. There's like a husk around the wheat, and the wheat's a kernel. Question, can we as human beings eat the chaff? We eat the chaff. It's like eating grass. Can human beings eat grass, really? Our system doesn't do the cellulose, so you can't eat the chaff. Do we eat the wheat, though? We eat the wheat. So you got to separate the wheat from the chaff. So basically, they get up on this flat area, and they chomp the animals, walk on it. Now, as the animals walk on it, the hard wheat gets shucked, and the shuck comes off, and then what do? You throw it up in the air, and all the chaff, which is light, gets blown away by the wind. Why do you want your threshing floor up on the top of a mountain? There's wind up there, and so the wind blows the chaff away. But when it does that, by the way, can you see the chaff? Is it almost like clouds? And I've seen this in Israel, where they do the chaff thing, and it looks like clouds. You can see it from 10 miles away. So what do the Midianites do? The Midianites are smart. Do the Midianites let the Jews plant their crops? Yes, they do. Do they let them harvest their crops? Yes, they do. When do the Midianites step in? When they're doing the threshing, the Midianites say, okay, now we've got pure grain. And the Midianites go up and say, hey, give me all that grain. It's mine. Okay? So what is Gideon doing? Gideon is in a wine press. A wine press, the ones I've seen have been about this big around. There are holes in the ground where wine gets pressed. Gideon is down in this wine press, threshing and trying to get the chaff off the grain, so he's throwing it up and down, but now it only has gravity to work because there's no wind in the wine press. Does he feel like a mighty warrior, or is he hiding? Is he hiding from the Midianites? He's hiding from the Midianites, and this angel then comes up to him, and Gideon was threshing wheat in the wine press to keep it from the Midianites. The angel of the Lord appeared to Gideon and said, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." Does Gideon feel like a mighty warrior? Does he feel like a chicken down there hiding, trying to not get caught by the Midianites? "But sir," Gideon replied, "if the Lord is with us, why has all this happened to us? Where are all his wonders that our fathers told us about?" And Gideon goes off and he says, no, this isn't. God then calls Gideon and says, Gideon, you're my man. You're going to lead Israel and things. And so basically calls Gideon and says, the Lord turned to him and said, go in the strength that you have and save Israel out of Midian's hand. Am I not sending you? Lord, he says, how can you save Israel? My clan is the weakest of Israel. And he starts making excuses.